Her daughter-in-law tapped her forehead and laughed. Nothing up there but dust. June Wallace finished her bite, stood, and rewrote the story. By morning, the deed would be transferred. By week's end, eviction papers would be served. Eric would say he didn't choose sides. June would remind him silence was a side, and he chose wrong. Wait, before we go any further, I gotta ask, where are you watching from? Drop it in the comments and don't forget to subscribe. The roast chicken was dry. The conversation was drier. It was 4:03 p.m. on a Sunday, the Wallace family's tradition, if you could call it that, and June sat at the far end of her own dining table, chewing carefully while Amber held court. Her daughter-in-law's voice floated like perfume, fragrant, constant, impossible to ignore. I told the contractor I want the backsplash to pop, not just sit there like beige sadness, Amber said, twirling her wine glass. And the counters? Oh, we're thinking Carrara marble, none of that budget stuff. Eric nodded along like a man clinging to a raft. Rosa, seated to June's right, quietly passed her the salt. Their hands brushed. June's grip was steady. Her silence was practiced. Amber didn't like silence. So, June, Amber said sweetly, leaning forward, you've been awfully quiet today. Big thoughts swirling up there? June lifted her eyes, held them on Amber's. Amber grinned, theatrical, reached across the table and tapped June on the forehead. Twice. Light. Casual. Cruel. Hello, up there, she chirped. Anybody home? Or just dust and crossword clues? Eric laughed, quick, nervous, and immediately looked down at his plate. Rosa's fork paused midair. June didn't flinch. She finished her bite of green beans, wiped the corner of her mouth, and placed her napkin gently beside her plate. Then, with absolute calm, she stood. Excuse me, she said. I need a moment. The clink of her chair against the floor was the only reply. She didn't raise her voice. She didn't throw her glass. She just walked out of her own dining room like a woman stepping off stage before the curtain could drop on someone else's bad performance. Rosa waited a beat, then rose too. In the hallway, June stood near the window, her back to the room, hands resting loosely on the sill. That wasn't okay? Rosa said quietly. June let out a long, measured breath. No, she said. It wasn't? Rosa hesitated. You want me to say something? No. You sure? June turned. She's been trying to erase me, she said softly. Word by word, smile by smile, like I'm just background noise to her next renovation. Rosa nodded once. You're not. June's expression didn't flicker, but her eyes held something new. Not anger, not grief, conviction. I'm done being erased, she said. Time I write something permanent. From the dining room, Amber's voice rose again, light and brittle. Rosa, can you bring more wine? Rosa glanced over her shoulder, then looked back at June. You want me to go? No, June said. I want you to stay. Tomorrow might be eventful. Eventful? June smiled. Not wide, not warm, just real. Let's just say I'm dusting off a few things of my own. She turned back to the window. Outside, the wind stirred the magnolia tree, branches shifting like they knew change was coming. Inside, Rosa stood still, watching, not asking questions, just staying. June waited until the house was quiet. Amber had gone upstairs to stream some self-care influencer in the bathtub. Eric, as always, disappeared into his office, the only room in the house he treated with respect. Mateo was asleep, soft breathing just audible through the cracked door down the hall. Rosa knocked once before entering the den. Need anything? June didn't look up. She sat at the old roll-top desk, her desk, a faint circle of dust still visible where the lamp used to sit before Amber moved it for a more minimal aesthetic. Could you bring me some tea? June asked gently. Of course, Rosa said. Mint okay? Perfect. As the door closed, June reached into the bottom drawer. It took a moment of pushing aside old PTA receipts and warranty booklets before her fingers found the slim blue folder. Inside, the deed to the house, dated 1993, still in her name. Sole owner, June Agnes Wallace. She exhaled, not relief exactly, just confirmation. The kind of knowing you get after years of being told you'd probably forgotten something. Next came the envelope of mortgage statements, paid in full, as of 9 years ago. She lined them up on the desk like dominoes, her name at the top of every one. No Eric, no Amber. Then she opened the banking app on her tablet and scrolled. There it was, a $986 charge to West Coast Patio Collective. She clicked the details. Ordered at 10:48 p.m. 3 nights ago. Memo line, "For the deck I'm going to make fabulous." Her card, Amber's name. June didn't flinch. Instead, she picked up the phone and called the county records office. "Hi there," she said, politely. "I'm confirming current ownership on a residential property, 118 Halsey Street." The woman on the other end tapped a keyboard. "Wallace, June A." She read aloud. "Deed filed solo. No liens, no transfers." "No secondary names on title?" "No, ma'am. You're the only listed owner." June smiled softly. "That's what I thought." She hung up just as Rosa returned, balancing a tray with 2 mugs and a small plate of crackers. "Mint with honey," she said, setting it down. "And I brought some of those sesame ones you like." June looked at her for a long second, not with gratitude, but with recognition. "You busy tomorrow morning?" she asked. Rosa blinked. "Tomorrow, 9:30, downtown." "Do I need a blazer?" June gave the faintest smirk. "Company's welcome, but what I really need is a witness." Rosa tilted her head. "Witness to what?" June tapped the corner of the deed folder. "To clarity." She didn't say anything else. She didn't need to. She slid the deed and the mortgage papers into a slim leather file. Neat, unfolded, unapologetic. Then she placed it beside her teacup and took a long sip. Outside, a breeze rustled the rose bushes Amber hated. She said they looked too grandmotherly. June left them anyway. They were Denise's favorite. Inside, the room was silent, until June leaned back in her chair and said, more to herself than to Rosa, "They don't get to renovate me out of my own story." Rosa sat quietly beside her, not asking questions, just staying. The tape measure snapped like a whip. Amber held one end against the wall and gestured toward the opposite side of the kitchen, where June sat at the small breakfast table with her tea and crossword. The Sunday light filtered in soft through the bay window, catching on the dust motes Amber swore made the house feel musty. "I'm thinking we knock this wall out completely," Amber said. She turned to the contractor, a young man named Chase with perfect stubble and a clipboard. "Open concept all the way to the den. More light, more flow, maybe some pendant lighting here. Industrial brass, but warm." Chase scribbled something, nodded. Amber kept going. "And we'll swap the floors. This tile is, well, you know." She didn't look at June. She didn't have to. June kept her pen poised over 14 across. 3-letter word for gut instinct. She wrote in ink. "See?" Amber turned suddenly. "You're good with that, right, June?" June looked up. "With what?" Amber waved her hand vaguely. "Everything. You know, making this place feel more livable." June took a sip of her tea. "It's been livable for 30 years. Amber laughed like that was charming. "Sure, but think what it could be." June smiled thinly. "I am." Later, after the contractor had gone and Amber had disappeared upstairs to vision board cabinetry, Rosa found June sitting outside on the back step, cardigan wrapped tight, a legal pad balanced on her knee. "I missed the show," Rosa said, handing her a fresh cup of tea. "You missed the audition," June replied. "The house got the part. I didn't." Rosa sat beside her. "You okay?" June looked out over the lawn. Mateo's old soccer ball sat under the hydrangeas. The deck Amber wanted to make fabulous was cracked, but solid. "She looked around my kitchen today," June said slowly, like it was a Pinterest board waiting for her to pin herself into it. "She's never really seen you, has she?" "Not once," June said. "She talks at me, past me, through me, never to me. And Eric. He just watches it happen, like it's weather." Rosa was quiet for a long time. "What are you going to do?" June handed her the legal pad. On it, a list, handwritten in her precise, teacher's script. "Living trust transfer. Draft outline. Transfer of title: June Agnes Wallace, Rosa Calderon, June Wallace. Life estate clause: full right of residence until death or voluntary departure. Successor beneficiary: Mateo Calderon, age 10. Legal counsel: Hollingsworth and Lee. Confirmed appointment. Filing date: to be determined. Within 7 business days, Rosa stared at it. Is this real? June took another sip. It's in ink. I don't know what to say. June smiled. Then don't. Just read it carefully when I'm not around. Ask your questions, and get ready for a house you don't have to apologize for. That evening, Eric cornered June near the staircase. I heard about the contractor, he said. Amber's just brainstorming. You don't have to be so reactive. June folded her arms. Reactive? Eric sighed. You've been off lately. All these files, the lawyer talk. Rosa says you're writing up legal drafts. It's just a lot. It's clarity, June said. And clarity's only scary if you've been hiding in fog. He laughed nervously. You're overthinking this. She leaned in. You'll think again soon enough. Eric didn't reply. He just scratched the back of his neck and mumbled something about checking the sump pump, the same sump pump that hadn't been checked since 2017. That night, June sat in bed, legal folder open, on her lap. She underlined Mateo's name with care, then wrote beside it, in the margin, for someone who sees without needing to be seen. Downstairs, Amber opened wine. Upstairs, June picked up the phone. Hello, Hollingsworth and Lee? I'd like to confirm our appointment. The morning air smelled like eucalyptus and resolve. June pulled on her gloves with the same precision she used to tie shoelaces on first graders. One smooth loop, a double-check tug, no wasted motion. Rosa waited in the car, her hands folded tightly in her lap, Mateo's lunchbox still in the back seat from drop-off. Neither woman spoke much during the drive. June drove carefully, ignoring the impatient nudge of a delivery van behind them. She came to full stops, signaled even when the road was empty. Her whole life had run on rules and timing. Today was no different, just quieter, more final. They pulled into the parking lot of Hollingsworth and Lee at 9:26 a.m. Inside, the office smelled of pine-scented floor polish and law school debt. The receptionist smiled and ushered them into a conference room with heavy chairs and a decanter of water no one touched. Ms. Wallace? The attorney said, entering. His nameplate read Simon Liu. Mid-40s, salt and pepper temples, soft-spoken but clear. Everything's ready for signature and notarization. We've added the life estate clause as requested, and the successor beneficiary has been listed as Mateo Calderon. He slid the papers across the table. Thick, tabbed, final. June uncapped the pen. Rosa stared at her. You're really sure? She whispered. June didn't look up. I'm sure who deserves this home, and it's not her. Rosa blinked hard. But why me? June paused, then met her eyes. Because you never assumed it was yours. She signed her name, slow, legible, proud. Then Rosa signed, hands trembling, as if touching the page too firmly might wake her from something. Simon notarized the final line, then stood and extended a new folder. These are your certified copies. We'll file the deed transfer with the county today. Should be reflected in public record by tomorrow morning. June took the folder and slipped it into her coat pocket. She buttoned the flap, like sealing something in place. Back in the car, Rosa didn't start the engine. She sat with both hands on the steering wheel, staring out through the windshield at nothing in particular. You didn't have to, she said softly. June exhaled. Number but I get to. Rosa didn't speak for a long moment. Then, when I was 18, my mother cleaned houses in Laurelhurst. She used to say, if you're quiet and respectful, they'll let you stay invisible long enough to finish the job. June turned toward her. You're not invisible anymore. Rosa blinked again, fast, then started the car. When they pulled into the driveway, Amber's SUV wasn't there. Grocery run, Rosa guessed. Or a wine restock, June said dryly. They both chuckled, quietly, but not small. Inside, the house felt the same, mostly, but Rosa paused before heading to her room. "You really want me to keep this copy in my room?" she asked, holding the second certified deed. June nodded. "Keep it where you'll feel it." Rosa hesitated. "What do I say if she asks?" June didn't answer right away. She reached into her coat pocket, pulled out the folder, and slid it into the drawer of the hallway table. Not hidden, not flaunted, just there. "She won't ask," June said. "Not yet." Rosa looked at her. "And when she does?" June's voice was calm, clear. "Then I'll answer, just once, and never again." Outside, the magnolia tree shifted in the wind, petals just beginning to open, pink and sharp and stubborn. Inside, June poured herself a cup of tea. Tomorrow, Amber would walk into this house like it was halfway hers. She'd start planning cabinetry. She'd start measuring for tiles. And June? She'd already measured something else. The sound of laughter pulled June into the kitchen before she meant to go. It was a late Saturday morning, and Amber had gathered 2 friends, glossy, scented women who smelled like coconut conditioner and shared delusions, around the island. A bottle of rosé sat sweating between them, half gone. The contractor, Chase, stood by the fridge flipping through a tablet of mock-ups. The floor plan on screen showed June's kitchen, gutted and glowing. June stepped in slowly, mug of tea in hand, calm as a judge entering her own courtroom. Amber spotted her. "Oh, June, honey, I was just saying to the girls, this whole space could be magic if someone modernized it." Chase smiled. "It's got great bones." "Doesn't it?" Amber said. "Soon this'll all be ours." June placed her mug on the counter, exactly where Amber had once said it left rings. "Actually," June said, voice low but precise, "this gathering needs to wrap up." Amber blinked. "Excuse me?" June gestured to the kitchen. "Your contractor, your wine hour, your assumptions, all of it. Time to call it." Amber laughed. A high, performative trill that bounced off the tile. "I don't think you understand. You don't run this house anymore." June didn't flinch. She reached into her cardigan pocket and pulled out the tri-folded copy of the deed, flattened it gently on the granite like a dealer laying down the final hand. "Actually," June said, tapping her name at the top, "I do. But not for long." The room paused. Amber leaned over, reading quickly, then again more slowly. Her eyes snagged on a line halfway down the page. Her mouth opened, then shut. She glanced up. "What is this?" "It's a transfer of ownership," June said evenly. "Filed with the county yesterday. Rosa Calderon is now the legal owner of this house." Amber scoffed. "You're joking!" June turned to Chase. "Could you give us a moment?" He nodded and left, quickly. The friends exchanged looks and followed. Amber's voice rose. "You gave the house to the help?" At that moment, Rosa stepped into the kitchen, apron still tied from doing dishes. She didn't raise her voice. She didn't have to. "You're in her house," Rosa said, "but not for much longer." Amber's eyes darted between them, mouth open. "Eric's not going to let this stand." June smiled, small, cold, and final. "Eric doesn't get a vote. He never asked for one." Amber gripped the counter like it might anchor her. "You can't just kick us out." "I'm not kicking you out," June said. "I'm giving you formal notice." She reached into her other pocket and pulled out a crisp, stapled packet, handed it to Amber. The header read, "Notice to vacate, 30 days. Legally filed, enforceable," June added. "And believe me, thoroughly documented." Amber opened her mouth again, probably to scream, but Rosa stepped between them. "Careful," Rosa said softly. "You're in her kitchen. And my house." Amber's face went pale, then flushed. "You'll regret this," she hissed. "I doubt it," June replied. From the hallway, Eric's voice rang out. "What's going on?" Amber whipped around. "She's lost her mind." Eric stepped into the doorway, eyes taking in the paper, the tension, the undeniable presence of something far too real for his comfort. "Mom?" he asked weakly. June looked at him. Not with anger, not with disappointment, just distance. "You've been standing beside her for so long, I forgot what your face looked like without a shadow." Eric didn't respond. Amber turned on him. "Say something." He said nothing, and that silence, it was louder than any tantrum she'd ever thrown. June picked up her mug, now cold. "I'll leave you two to pack," she said. Then she walked out of her own kitchen, head high, steps sure, knowing full well the house was finally hers again. Not by law, but by clarity. The next morning, the house crackled with silence. Not peace, but pressure. June sat at the kitchen table with her toast and the local paper. She turned the pages slowly, deliberately, even as she heard Amber's heels strike the floor upstairs like punctuation. Eric shuffled in, hair still wet from the shower, looking like he hadn't slept. "Can we talk?" he asked. June folded the paper neatly and nodded once. He sat down, elbows on the table like a boy sent to apologize before knowing what for. "She's upset," he said. "I imagine so," June replied. "She says you're not well, that you've been impulsive, that this isn't like you." June sipped her coffee. "You wouldn't know what's like me. You haven't asked in years." Eric winced. "Come on, Mom." June looked at him, not unkindly. "You let her talk for you, Eric, for years. You let her decide what mattered, who mattered, when I was done." "She exaggerates," he said. "She gets emotional." "No," June said, her voice like the edge of a paper that cuts. "She gets cruel, and you hand her the scissors." He said nothing. Outside, a car door slammed. Inside, the air shifted. Amber stormed into the kitchen, waving a stack of stapled papers in the air like victory. Her hair was tied too tightly, her lipstick defiant. "I filed an emergency injunction," she announced. "We're freezing the deed. My cousin's lawyer says you're clearly being coerced. This won't hold." June looked up from her mug. "You have a cousin who's a lawyer?" Amber hesitated. "He... interns." "Ah." Eric rubbed his forehead. Amber dropped the packet on the table with a dramatic thump. "Senile," she said sharply. "That's what he called it. You've got no business making legal decisions. You gave our home away to someone who makes tea for a living." Rosa stepped into the doorway, calm and unshaken. "I also file taxes, help seniors with Medicare appeals, and I don't steal from joint bank cards." Amber turned, fire rising. "Stay out of this." "No," Rosa said, quiet steel in her voice. "I live here now, legally, permanently. This is my business." Eric stood up suddenly. "Okay, stop, please." Amber turned on him. "You said you'd back me." He looked at his mother, then at Rosa. "I said I'd try to de-escalate. This isn't that." June stood slowly, folding the paper back into its creases. "You filed the injunction?" Amber crossed her arms. "Yes, and we'll see what a judge says." "We will," June said, "because I called my attorney. It's already been reviewed. The injunction was tossed at 8:42 this morning. Lack of evidence, improper filing, no standing." Amber paled. Just for a flicker. "You can't do this," she said. "I did." Amber's hands trembled as she turned and stormed out. Eric stood there uncertain. "She'll calm down." June looked at him. "That's what you always say, and she never does. You call it loyalty. I call it fear." That night, Rosa installed a lock on the guest room. Not loud, not secret, just final. Amber saw it, didn't speak, just glared as she passed by with a glass of wine and no dinner plate. Mateo peeked out from his room as June headed back to hers with a book under her arm. "Ms. June?" he asked. She turned, softened. "My mom said even nice people have to protect their peace," he said. "Is that what's happening?" June knelt beside him. "It's exactly what's happening." He nodded solemnly. "She's good at that. She's very good at that." He gave a little grin and ducked back into his room. June stood up feeling every year in her knees, but not in her chest. In her room, she pulled out her journal. Day 2. Protection isn't aggression, it's punctuation, the full stop before the next sentence. She capped the pen, set the book down, and waited. Because the real fight hadn't started yet, but the locks were turning, and the paper trail was lined in ink. Amber didn't scream anymore. She'd moved into a new phase, icy silence and tightly closed cabinet doors, the kind that slammed only when June was nearby. She passed June in the hallway like a ghost she refused to admit was still breathing. It was colder this way, colder and sharper. She took phone calls on speaker in the kitchen now, performing casual slander with an audience of whoever would listen. "No, it's just sad. Watching someone unravel and not being allowed to say anything," she told her sister over brunch. "She's not herself. Rosa's got her so twisted up. I'm starting to worry she's dangerous." June walked in mid-sentence and dropped a spoon into the sink, loud, deliberate. Amber didn't even look her way. That afternoon, Marlene showed up with a tin of lemon bars and an expression like she'd been waiting for someone to challenge her for decades. "Well, well," she said as she stepped into the living room, eyeing Amber on the couch with a glass of Pinot. "Heard the gossip mill's working overtime," Amber sniffed. "We're just trying to be patient. June's not in her right mind." Marlene's eyes snapped to June. "Funny. She's sharper than anyone in this house, present company very much included." Amber stood. "This is a family matter." "No, dear," Marlene said sweetly. "This is a clarity matter, and your fog machine's broken." June didn't say a word, just took the lemon bars and walked to the kitchen, where Rosa was sorting mail and pretending not to hear every word. "I can make space upstairs," Rosa said quietly, slipping a bill into the paid tray. "If you ever want to move out of your room." June raised an eyebrow. "Out of my own bed?" "Just in case." "Thank you," June said, her voice soft. "But I think I'll let her keep flinching at my footsteps for a while longer." That night, muffled arguing filtered through the vents. Eric and Amber again. Their voices blurred into each other until the thud of something being dropped punctuated the conversation. Then the basement door opened. June, sitting in bed with her reading glasses perched halfway down her nose, heard his footsteps descend. Slow, resigned. She didn't get up, didn't knock, she just turned the page. The next morning, Amber walked through the kitchen with a Bluetooth headset and a bowl of yogurt, narrating loudly to whoever was listening. She's journaling now, yeah, like every night, like she's composing some manifesto. June turned from the sink. "Manifestos are usually angry, mine's mostly observations and grocery lists." Amber froze, then walked out, leaving her spoon in the sink. Rosa appeared moments later, setting a small envelope on the counter. "Mail for you." It was addressed in flowing script. June Wallace, Halsey Street. No apartment number, no title needed. Inside, a blank card with one sentence. "Still here, still sharp, always cheering, no signature. Just clarity." That night, June opened her journal and wrote in neat square letters, "Day 5, peace under construction. Slow, deliberate, no shortcuts. Walls going up where doors used to be. That's not cruelty, that's design." She drew a small box beside it and shaded it in. One square for every day Amber tried to erase her with silence. She'd filled 5 already, and there were plenty of boxes left. The post went up at 7:12 a.m. on a Tuesday. Amber had chosen the photo carefully, a slightly unflattering shot of June in the backyard, mid-step, hair tousled by the wind, wearing her gardening sweater. The caption, though, was the real knife. Hard to watch someone spiral, especially when you used to love them, when the woman who raised your husband becomes a stranger in your own home. Pray for peace. Family matters. One heartbroken, not hateful. It wasn't long before the shares started. Not explosive, just steady. A low boil of clicks and comments and suburban whispers gone digital. Her high school friend commented first, "So sorry you're going through this." Then someone Amber barely knew added, "You're doing your best. Protect your peace, girl." Amber smirked behind her mimosa. What she didn't expect came exactly 40 minutes later. A new comment appeared. "You mean June Wallace? The retired teacher from Lincoln? She taught my daughter in 6th grade. Best year of her life. That woman has more sense than the rest of us combined. Another followed. Miss Wallace? She helped run the library's free reading program for years. My mom still talks about her poetry voice. And then more. Not trolls, not internet warriors, locals, people who knew June by her presence, not through Amber's performance. By 11 a.m., the post had over 70 comments, and they weren't going Amber's way. Even worse, someone tagged Rosa in a reply. Is this the same Rosa Calderon who helped my aunt during chemo? If so, she's a gem. And anyone she stands beside, I trust. Amber deleted a few, then tried replying to others. This is personal, and you don't know the full story. To which someone shot back, seems like we know enough. By lunchtime, Eric had noticed. He came into the kitchen holding his phone, jaw tight. Amber, you need to take it down. She didn't look up from her laptop. It's my page, my truth. He set the phone on the counter. My coworkers are texting me. One of them went to Lincoln. She said if your post is about June, then you're the problem. Amber's eyes narrowed. So now you're siding with the librarian? She's a retired educator. She's unraveling. Eric rubbed his temples. Number. She's just finally not pretending you're decent. Amber stood and swept the laptop shut. Fine, let the internet pick their villain. But when she ends up in a facility and this whole thing blows back, don't say I didn't warn you. Eric walked out without another word. June, seated in the den with her tablet open, hadn't responded once. Not online, not aloud, just screenshots. Quiet folders, labeled, dated, indexed. Across the kitchen, Rosa scrolled through the post with an expression somewhere between annoyance and amusement. My cousin just texted me, she said. Said if Amber's aiming for sympathy, she missed by a zip code. At 4:30 p.m., the doorbell rang. Marlene stood on the porch with a pie tin wrapped in foil and a glint in her eye. Figured you'd need reinforcements, she said, brushing past the entry rug. Cherry? June asked. Of course. And the sound you're hearing right now? Marlene held up the pie like a trophy. That's the sound of consequences knocking. June smiled, not wide, not smug, just sure. Later that evening, June opened her journal. Day 6. Some people shout because silence terrifies them. I don't have to shout. I just have to stand still and let the truth echo. She closed the book and looked out the window, where the last of the sun stretched long across the street. Amber had gone quiet upstairs. And tomorrow? That post would still be archived, and the story, the real one, was just beginning to write itself. The dishwasher hummed, a low mechanical breath beneath the kitchen's silence. June sat at the table with a deck of cards in front of her, not playing, just sorting, hearts from clubs, truth from politeness. Eric stood in the doorway, his shoes were off, his posture tentative. He looked like a man halfway between a decision and an apology. I owe you a conversation, he said. June didn't look up. That would be new. He stepped closer but didn't sit. She's not handling this well. June set the deck down. Neither am I, but I'm not blaming the furniture. Eric sighed. She's scared. Everything she thought she had, she feels like it's slipping. June raised her eyes. It was never hers. He nodded once reluctantly. I know. Silence sat down between them. I heard what she said about you online, Eric continued, and before that. All the times she joked about you behind your back. And? I didn't join in, he offered. June tilted her head. You didn't stop her either. He flinched. I didn't want conflict, he admitted. I thought it would blow over, that keeping the peace was respectful. June stood slowly, pushed her chair in. Respectful is what you call it when you let people disappear politely. You let her mock me because it kept your house quiet. Eric's voice broke. I didn't think it would go this far. June turned to face him fully now, calm, composed. I didn't want to be invisible, Eric, but I didn't scream. I didn't throw things. I just stayed. And How that made it easy for you to pretend I wasn't there. He swallowed hard. I'm sorry. I know. Just then, Rosa walked in from the front hallway, holding a small silver key on a red string. She looked at June, then Eric. She seemed to hesitate, then stepped forward. I made a copy, Rosa said, for the front door. June took it, held it for a moment in her palm, then looked back at her son. This house isn't just about walls and paperwork, it's about seeing people. I raised you to see people, not to hide behind them. Eric stood still. He didn't argue, just nodded slowly, like someone finally realizing the mirror hadn't been flattering, just accurate. Later that evening, June stood at the sink washing one glass. Her sleeves rolled, the key now tied around her wrist like a bracelet. Footsteps echoed down the stairs. Eric entered the hallway, a duffel over one shoulder. He paused near the front door. I don't know where I'm going yet, he said quietly. June turned. Then go somewhere you can hear yourself think. He hesitated, then looked at Rosa. Thank you, he said. She didn't answer, just gave a soft nod. He looked back once more at his mother. I'm sorry it took me this long. I'm not, June said. It gave me time to remember who I am without needing you to agree. He opened the door, stepped out into the night, closed it gently behind him. Not a slam, not a retreat, just an ending. Rosa locked it behind him. Later, in her room, June opened her journal. Day 9. Some things break quietly. Some things separate clean. But once the weight leaves, you realize who was keeping you anchored and who was just holding you down. She looked at the key on her wrist, then untied it, set it on her nightstand, and whispered, almost reverently, finally untethered. Amber left on day 21, right on schedule, right on brand. No apology, no note. Just a slammed door, 2 wheeled suitcases, and a Lyft driver who looked like he didn't want to be involved. She wore sunglasses, though the sky was overcast, and made a point to click her heels across the porch like punctuation. She didn't say goodbye. June watched from the second-floor landing, not hiding, just choosing her vantage. When the car pulled away, Rosa emerged from the guest room holding a roll of trash bags and a pair of gloves. Do we wait? She asked. June shook her head. We begin. They started in the bedroom, Amber's scent lingering in the air, all artificial vanilla and entitlement. The closet had been emptied but not vacuumed. A wine glass sat on the nightstand, lipsticked. Rosa tossed it in the donate bin. Mateo joined with a spray bottle and 2 big gloves. What do I do? Spritz every surface that looks smug, Rosa told him. He took the task seriously. By mid-afternoon, the bed was stripped, the windows open, the rug shaken clean. June stood in the doorway of the now empty room and exhaled like she'd finally finished a sentence that had taken years to say. The house felt different, lighter, not just in silence, but in shape. The echo had changed. You could hear footsteps again, and they didn't sound like warnings. In the kitchen, Rosa rearranged the spice rack. June pushed the table 2 feet closer to the window. Mateo dragged a small plant from the hallway into the corner and declared it officially moved. It wasn't just cleaning, it was reassembling, claiming. That evening, June stood barefoot in the kitchen, toes brushing tile she once thought of as cold. It wasn't anymore, not in this light, not without the chill of someone waiting to contradict every word. She poured herself a glass of water and let it rest against her palm. No yelling, no tension, just stillness. Rosa stepped in, wiping her hands on a dish towel. You hungry? Not yet, June said. Just here. Feels different? It is. A knock sounded from the back door. Marlene, holding a bottle of sparkling cider and a brown bag slung over one shoulder. Well, she said, looks like a ghost moved out. She took the wine, Rosa said. She can keep it, Marlene replied. Let's have dinner. We didn't cook, June said. Marlene smiled. Good. You cooked for years. Tonight we eat what we want, not what we planned. They ate leftovers on real plates. Rosa's arroz con pollo, Marlene's store-bought salad, June's banana bread from 2 nights ago. No centerpiece, no place settings, just a table of women who weren't performing. After dishes were done and the counters wiped, Rosa handed June a small package. "What's this?" "Open it." Inside, a ceramic plate, hand-glazed, ivory with navy trim. In the center, etched in calligraphy, "Still seen, still sharp." June traced the words with her fingers. "I had it made a week ago," Rosa said. "Wasn't sure when the right time would be." June smiled, small but unguarded. "It's perfect." She hung it above the kitchen window the next morning. No announcement, no ribbon, just a nail, a hammer, and the confidence of permanence. Later that day, she added one more entry to her journal. Day 22. The vacancy left more than space, it left air. And where there's air, there's breath. I had forgotten how much I needed both. She closed the book and stood at the kitchen sink, mug in hand, the plate reflecting morning light. And for the first time in years, truly, she was the only woman in the house, and the only voice that mattered. The city van pulled up at 10:04 a.m., exactly 4 minutes behind schedule, which meant, by June's standards, right on time. She stood at the front door with her palms smoothed against her navy cardigan, her brooch pinned just left of center. Rosa fluffed the curtains behind her. Mateo peeked through the stair railing, whispering, "Do they wear suits?" like it was a spy movie. "They're preservationists, not spies," Rosa whispered back. "But they take notes," Mateo said. June opened the door with a smile that felt neither forced nor rehearsed, just earned. A small team stepped onto the porch, one clipboarded official from the city planning office, a young woman with a camera around her neck, and a red-haired intern who looked barely 20. "Ms. Wallace?" the lead staffer asked. "June, please. And this is Rosa, co-resident, co-curator, keeper of everything that grows." Rosa gave a warm nod. The staffer glanced at her notes. "You're on the shortlist for the Neighborhood Heritage Home Program. If approved, the designation comes with tax credits and maintenance grants, but more importantly, the story behind the house will be preserved." "Then you're in the right place," June said, holding the door open. They moved through the living room slowly, commenting on the crown molding and the woodwork. June let them talk, pointing only when asked, answering with economy. In the hallway, the intern stopped walking. His eyes landed on the shelf, the one Rosa had dubbed the legacy shelf. A narrow display of framed PTA photos, a wooden apple inscribed with "Ms. Wallace, Best Teacher 2006, and a faded bookmark from Lincoln Middle's first reading drive. "That's her," he said softly. June turned. "I had you in 6th grade, the intern said. "You made us memorize poetry every week. I hated it at first." June smiled. "Most did." He blinked hard. "But I still remember my first one, the one I picked." His voice cracked as he whispered, "We wear the mask that grins and lies." June's hand found the edge of the bookshelf to steady herself, not from weakness, but the weight of being remembered fully. Rosa stepped in gently. "Come see the garden." They moved out back, where Rosa's herbs lined the fence, and a riot of zinnias stretched under the sun like they'd been waiting to be noticed. "Color matters," Rosa said. "So does what you can eat. We grow both." The camera clicked again and again. Mateo handed out plastic cups of lemonade he'd helped squeeze that morning. When someone asked if he lived here, he pointed proudly to the side window. "Room with the poster of the galaxy. My mom gave it to me the day we moved in." He paused, then added, "We're not just visitors anymore." They circled back through the kitchen, where the ceramic plate above the sink caught the light. Still seen, still sharp. The planner noticed it but didn't comment. She didn't have to. As the team packed up to leave, the intern lingered. "I'm writing the entry," he said, "for the heritage application. Do you mind if I include something personal?" June hesitated. He added, "I just want people to know this isn't a house with history. It's a house with memory. And that's rarer." June nodded. "Then write what's true." They left just after noon. June, Rosa, and Mateo sat on the front steps with the leftover lemonade. "Was that good?" Mateo asked. "That," Rosa said, "was better than good." That was recognition. They raised their cups. "To quiet victories," June said. Mateo grinned. "To real ones." That evening, June sat in her room, feet tucked under her, journal in her lap. She wrote slowly. Day 23. Visibility isn't noise, it's presence. It's the power of standing still until the world realizes you never left. She set the journal down and turned to the window. On the lawn below, Mateo had taped a handmade sign to the mailbox, "Home of June and Rosa." She didn't correct it, didn't ask him to take it down, because for once the sign said everything, and the story, the one that mattered, was finally planted in full view. The microphone wobbled slightly on its stand. June steadied it with one hand, then squared her shoulders. The auditorium wasn't large, a city hall overflow room with cracked tile and uncomfortable chairs, but every seat was filled. Neighbors, program staff, and a few curious strangers who had read the online article about the woman who wouldn't be erased. She cleared her throat just once. "My name is June Wallace," she said, her voice firm but unforced. "I am 70 years old. I've lived in the same house on Halsey Street for 38 of them." A pause. No rustling. No coughs. "I was a public school teacher, a PTA president, a math tutor, a block captain, and for the past few years I've also been a guest in my own home." A ripple of murmurs moved through the crowd. "I say guest because that's how I was treated, watched over, spoken around, managed like a fragile heirloom. I wasn't asked what I needed. I was told what I was lucky to still have." She took a breath. "But here's the thing about houses. If you're still standing in them, still cooking, still voting, still making coffee, then you're not done. And you're not a guest." Behind her, Rosa stood off to the side of the stage, arms crossed over her chest. Mateo sat in the front row, kicking his heels gently against the chair legs. "I'd like to thank someone," June said, turning slightly toward Rosa. "Rosa Calderone didn't just move into my house. She moved with me through a storm I didn't start. And never once did she ask for more than a place to breathe." The room broke into quiet applause. The real kind, the kind that starts because someone feels recognized in their bones. When June stepped down, several hands reached out. A woman in her 80s pressed her fingers to June's wrist and said, "You gave us words. We didn't even know we needed them." By the time they got home, the event had already been written up online. City Voices, June Wallace's Stand for Senior Sovereignty. Amber saw it within the hour. Her post came next, a seething screed beneath a filtered selfie captioned, "Sad when public pity replaces real family, but some people are addicted to applause." This time, not one reply, not even Eric, not even spam. Amber deleted it within 10 minutes. June never saw it. Rosa did. She chuckled, then muted Amber's account for good. Later that week, a letter arrived, postmarked from Boise, shaky, cursive across the envelope. Inside, "Dear Ms. Wallace, I'm 82 and still balancing my checkbook better than my grandson can code an app. Thank you for reminding us we still count. Thank you for standing up with both feet. I printed out the article and hung it next to my calendar. May you always feel seen. With respect, Margaret H." June read it twice, then handed it to Rosa. "Frame it," she said. "I already bought the mat," Rosa replied. That same evening, June placed one more folder into her fireproof safe. Inside, a new legal directive. Permanent heir, Rosa Calderone. Contingent heir, Mateo Calderone. Eric Wallace. Removed from all estate claims, with full disclosure filed. No drama, no second draft, just ink, just clarity. She tucked the safe shut, turned the bolt, and stood. From her window, the streetlights blinked on, soft halos illuminating the sidewalk like invitations, not warnings. June picked up her pen and opened her journal. Day 28. Some people inherit houses, others inherit hope. One takes up space, the other builds it. She clicked the lamp off. The room faded into quiet. But the legacy? It glowed. And tomorrow someone new would walk through the door, someone who knew who built it, and why it finally felt like home. The smell of garlic, cinnamon, and something unmistakably Cajun drifted down Halsey Street by 5:42 p.m. Rosa had pulled the dining table out into the middle of the living room. No head, no foot, just one long stretch of welcome. June clipped fresh flowers from the garden and arranged them in mason jars between serving bowls and Pyrex pans. No one asked what the dress code was. No one brought wine that needed chilling. This wasn't a dinner party. It was a reckoning, joyful, grounded, and long overdue. By 6, the house was full. Neighbors brought memories wrapped in foil and plastic wrap. Ms. Owens from next door arrived with a slow cooker of her late sister's gumbo. A teacher friend from June's early days brought a macaroni casserole labeled Gloria's Church Potluck, 1983. Even Mateo's soccer coach stopped by with a tray of tamales made by his grandmother because she said any woman who protects kids without raising her voice deserves the real recipe. June floated through the room, not hosting, just existing, present, comfortable, whole. Marlene arrived last, wearing red lipstick and a cardigan that might have been older than the street itself. "I brought a story," she said instead of a dish, flapping an old yearbook like a menu. "Not edible," Rosa teased. "Better than edible," Marlene said, plopping down with flair. "So picture it. PTA meeting, 1994. The school board wants to cut library funding." June stands up, looks the superintendent dead in the eye, and says, "If you can name even 3 books you read this year, I'll sit back down." He couldn't. She didn't. The room laughed. Not politely, but freely. June bowed slightly. "I did bring cookies, but Marlene brought history." Midway through dessert, Mateo stood up. He cleared his throat like he'd seen at weddings, eyes round, spoon clutched like a microphone. "I want to say something," he said. The chatter quieted. Mateo looked around the room, then at his mom, then at June. "Thank you for giving us a place to belong." A pause. "And thank you for knowing we'd take care of it." Silence. Then Rosa pressed her napkin to her eyes, and someone started clapping, and June just breathed. Not the shallow kind she'd gotten used to, not the wary inhale of waiting for something to be taken away. This was the kind of breath that fills you all the way to the edges. When the guests began to leave, they hugged longer than usual. Some brought empty containers and left with full hearts. No one asked if Amber was coming. No one mentioned Eric. It was as though the house had exhaled them both. June stood by the door as the last friend left. She turned to Rosa, who was gathering serving spoons and laughing softly at a story Mateo had half finished. "You did all this," June said. Rosa shook her head. "We did." June took a step closer. "No, Rosa, you saw me when I was wallpaper. You helped me remember I'm foundation." Rosa didn't speak right away. She just reached for June's hand. "We see you," she said. "And we're here." Later that night, when the dishes were rinsed and the floors swept, June returned to her journal. Day 29. Celebration isn't noise. It's acknowledgement. It's what happens when presence is finally met with return. She capped her pen and closed the book. Then she glanced toward the kitchen, where Mateo had taped up a new sign, crooked and earnest. "This house remembers." June smiled, the kind that didn't need to be seen to be understood, because now she wasn't the one being written over. She was the one doing the writing, and the final line was almost in reach. The magazine arrived on a Wednesday, bundled in plastic, wedged into the mailbox like it didn't matter. June spotted the return address the moment Rosa set the mail on the counter. Northwest Living, Stories of Home and Place. She peeled the wrapper open slowly, careful not to bend the cover. Her fingers moved like someone unfolding something sacred, not because it was delicate, but because it had taken so long to arrive. There, full page, dust, number she sparked a movement. Beneath the headline, a photo, black and white, shot from the garden path. June at her front door, head held high. Rosa standing behind her, one hand on Mateo's shoulder, the brass house number glinting just enough to say, "Yes, this place." The first sentence read, June Wallace was supposed to disappear quietly. Instead, she planted roots and let the world trip over them. Rosa read it first. Mateo read it next, asking what sovereignty meant and why someone in the comments called June a generational disruptor. It means she didn't wait for permission, Rosa told him. She rewrote the will and the story. Within an hour, the article began to circle online, not viral, not scandalous, just quietly passed, like a casserole left on a neighbor's porch. Comments flowed in. She taught my daughter to divide fractions and confidence. We need more Junes and Rosas in the world, and fewer Ambers. Shared this with my mom. She cried. June didn't reply to any of them. She just bookmarked the page and closed her laptop with the same care she once used to pack report cards. Neat, confidential, permanent. That afternoon, she and Rosa baked 4 dozen cookies and walked them over to the community center. Peanut butter, snickerdoodle, 1 tray of soft oatmeal raisin for the elders with sensible teeth, June said. Is this because of the article? Rosa asked. No, June replied. This is because people remember what kindness tastes like. On the way home, June stopped at the corner grocery for milk. The clerk, a middle-aged man with a ponytail and a Go Beavs button, rang up her items with a pause. You're that house lady, he said suddenly. The one from the magazine. I read it during lunch. June raised an eyebrow. And? He shrugged. Didn't know standing your ground could look so calm. It usually does, she said. It's the shaking that comes after. He nodded once, bagged her items, and said, Tell Rosa those cookies changed my life. That evening, after the dishes were done and the curtains drawn, June pulled a new notebook from the drawer. This one wasn't a journal. It was thinner, more formal, embossed with the seal of the Neighborhood Elders Initiative. Mentorship inquiry form, read the top page. Rosa leaned in over her shoulder. You're doing it? Why not? I've got decades of advice and no classroom bell to beat me now. Mateo peeked over the counter. Can I help? June handed him a pen. You can be my administrative assistant. He saluted. By the weekend, the first request had come in. A woman in her 70s asking how to revise a will her children didn't approve of. My son says it's morbid to plan. I say it's morbid to leave a mess. June drafted her reply in longhand. Old school. Director. You don't owe anyone your silence. That's not legacy. That's surrender. On Sunday, she walked to the front porch and found a new note tucked under the welcome mat. It read, Thank you for proving the expiration date they gave us was a lie. Lillian, age 76, still, loud. June held the note to her chest. Rosa opened the screen door behind her. Everything okay? June nodded. It's more than okay, she said. It's finally loud enough to hear ourselves. She folded the note, slipped it into the legacy shelf, right beside the photo of her first class. The sun dipped below the roofline, throwing gold across the yard. Tomorrow would come, with more requests, more notes, more people saying I thought I was the only one. But for tonight, the story had stopped moving long enough for her to breathe in the middle of it, and in that stillness she smiled, because the final line was coming. And this time, she'd be the one to write it. The morning air smelled like lemon balm and sunlight. June opened the front window wide and let the breeze spill in, soft, warm, unhurried. The kind of morning that made you forget clocks had hands, the kind that didn't ask for anything but presence. She padded barefoot into the kitchen. The tile was cool, the light golden, and the kettle already steaming, thanks to Rosa. A single tulip in a mason jar sat by the sink, its stem bent slightly like it was listening. June poured her tea and walked to the table. She opened her journal. There was only 1 page left. The entry came without effort. Day 30. No one erased me. I just hadn't finished the sentence yet. She set the pen down. Outside, Rosa was already in the garden, her sun hat tilted back, hands deep in soil. Mateo zoomed past the screen door with a stick-turned lightsaber and a paper crown askew on his head. Careful on the steps, Rosa called. I'm a knight, Mateo yelled back. Knights don't trip. June chuckled, then slid open the door. "I'm coming out," she said. "Bring the good chair." Rosa didn't hesitate. She wiped her hands and returned a moment later with the wide, cushioned armchair June liked best, the one they dragged to the porch only on days that felt like punctuation, not ellipses. June eased herself into it with the grace of someone who had earned every wrinkle in the cushion. "Tea?" Rosa asked. "Already poured." "Book?" "Don't need one." The sun pressed gently on her skin like an old friend finally returning a favor. Across the street, Marlene appeared in her front yard, holding a pie tin wrapped in foil and waving it like a flag. "Hope you didn't bake," she called. "Because this is the finale." Mateo dashed toward her, yelling something about whipped cream reinforcements. Rosa went inside to fetch plates. June stayed where she was, still, present, unmoved by hurry. Marlene reached the porch and set the pie down on the table beside her. "You look smug," she said, narrowing her eyes. "I'm rested," June replied. "You just forgot what that looks like on me." They laughed. Marlene leaned against the railing. "Can't believe it's quiet." "Real quiet," June said. "The kind you build, not beg for." She looked toward the sidewalk where Mateo had chalked hopscotch boxes beneath the mailbox, where Rosa's herbs were beginning to flower in defiant, spiky rows, where neighbors waved now, not out of politeness, but recognition. The porch felt solid beneath her feet, the house felt like hers. And Rosa stepped back outside with 2 plates and a folded napkin tucked under her arm, like a waitress in a restaurant that only served truth. She sat down beside June. The pie went untouched for a while. They didn't need to eat to feel full. "I never thanked you properly," June said. Rosa turned. "You don't need to." June shook her head, slow but certain. "Not for the house. For the mirror." Rosa blinked. "What mirror?" "The one you held up, when everyone else just looked through me." Rosa looked down, smiled, then reached across the armrest and took June's hand. "We see you, June, and we're here." June didn't cry. Didn't need to. She just watched the street, watched the light shift, watched a boy run with a paper crown and a voice too big for one body, and whispered, "Thanks for seeing me before the world did." Rosa squeezed her hand. The wind picked up. Not loud, not rude, just enough to stir the tulip in the kitchen and ruffle Mateo's crown. And June smiled, the kind of smile that knew every ending was just a sentence finally landing. And her last line? She'd already written it. She tapped my forehead and found dust. I tapped back and found fire.